1 year ago, I uploaded my Life on Linux series, and it's time to do it again. Hey, what's up guys? I'm Jacob Kaufman, I'm running the street, and today I've been running Windows on my computer for quite a while, and it is working a little too well. In all seriousness, I've had Windows installed ever since winter break, which was like 3 or 4 months ago. So yeah, I think it's time to get back to Linux. I talk a lot on this channel about how you can do everything on Linux that you can do on Windows and Mac OS, but right now I actually don't use Linux as my everyday machine. Right now, I use Windows 8.1 as my daily driver. I've got Slackware Linux installed on a Dell Dimension, but I hardly ever use that just because the Dell Dimension is slow. Now last year when I did the Life on Linux series, I actually already had Linux installed on the computer, but right now I do not have Linux on this computer at all, and I'm going to get it again. I'm going to show you guys. Last year when I did Life on Linux Season 1, I used Kubuntu Linux. I'm looking at the poster behind the camera there, and Kubuntu is really great. It's very similar to Windows, and it's, fast, pretty easy to use. But while Kubuntu is one of the most supported distributions out there, there are other distributions that are even more supported than Kubuntu. For instance, Ubuntu is the main, obviously Ubuntu is the main branch of Ubuntu. Kubuntu was just like a side project off of the original Ubuntu, but I don't really like Ubuntu anymore, and a lot of people don't. Ubuntu has an interface designed for touchscreens, and while I'm very excited to see Ubuntu coming to tablets and maybe phones, I don't want to be using it on my desktop. I've tried Unity out on my desktop in the past, so yeah, it's not like I'm judging it before I'm trying it. It's not my favorite thing in the world. It's alright sometimes, but, I just want something a little different. So yeah, aside from the fact that Ubuntu has basically become the Windows of the Linux world, and that it's designed for touchscreens right now, I'm going to go ahead and show you guys a Linux distribution. I actually checked. I've never shown you this distro before, and it's a major distro. It's not like some small distro like AV Linux. This is a major Linux distribution. It actually has the #1 popularity rating according to distrowatch.com. I'm not sure if that rating is actually in terms of how many people visit the Linux Mint website, or if it's how many people are visiting Linux Mint's page on DistroWatch, which DistroWatch is a website that catalogs a bunch of different Linux distributions. But the point is, it's more popular than Ubuntu right now. As Ubuntu has been making progress toward its Unity interface, like I said, lots of people were not very happy with that. And so while Ubuntu was the easiest distribution to use back a few years ago, now Linux Mint is basically the new easiest Linux distribution to use. Linux Mint is now known as the beginner distro, whereas Ubuntu used to be known as the beginner distro. Now nobody puts beginners on Ubuntu. You use Kubuntu or Xubuntu, Xubuntu, however you pronounce that, or you use something like Linux Mint. And you're probably thinking, Jacob, well, you might not be thinking, Jacob, you're installing a beginner distribution on your computer? Yes, because I've used it before and I actually love it. Everything works really smoothly, it's really great, and I'm going to show you the website right now so that I can show you what version of Linux Mint I am using. Alright, here we are. So I'm going to open a new browser window, and I am going to maybe put this to half the screen so I can possibly zoom in a little bit, and I'm going to go to linuxmint.com. And linuxmint.com obviously is the website for Linux Mint. I'll make it a little, well, I guess that doesn't matter. This is Linux Mint's website, and as you can see, there are some different editions available. Now, if you go to the download page, you'll see all these different download options. There's Linux Mint 16, and then there's Linux Mint Debian, and then there's all these different, there's Cinnamon, Mate, there's no codec versions, there's KDE, XFCE. Now, what are the differences between all of these versions? Well, first off, let me start off. Linux Mint itself is based off of Ubuntu Linux. That means you can install programs written specifically for Ubuntu onto Linux Mint. Now, this version of Linux Mint is released in numerical versions. For instance, the version before this was 15, now Linux Mint 16 is out, and in about 2 months, version 17 is scheduled to come out. And there are 2 different editions. As you can see, there's Cinnamon Edition and Mate Edition. Now, I'm going to go to those websites here real quick. Cinnamon is a user interface designed specifically for Linux Mint, as far as I know. The people who make Linux Mint also make or administrate Cinnamon. And Cinnamon is basically, well, it's a desktop environment. If you don't know what a desktop environment is, Basically, it controls how your computer looks. It's basically the front end. So what's the difference between Cinnamon and Mate? Well, Mate was actually created as a fork of GNOME 2. So when you're using Mate, you're using the previous version of GNOME. Now they're still updating it to where it has new technologies, but in terms of like non-technological stuff, I guess, in terms of like usability, it works the same as GNOME 2. Now in Linux Mint, Mate is heavily modified to where it more closely resembles a Windows computer, whereas GNOME 2 did not actually resemble Windows. But yeah, the Mate edition of Linux Mint is built off of something that is a continuation of GNOME 2, whereas Cinnamon, the Cinnamon edition of Linux Mint, is based off of GNOME 3. Because Cinnamon is actually based off of GNOME 3 as a front end. Now, once again, Cinnamon looks nothing like GNOME 3, just like the Mate version of Linux Mint looks nothing like GNOME 2. But yeah, that's basically the difference, is that this is a new thing based off of a new desktop environment, whereas Mate is a new thing based off of an old desktop environment. Once again, they're both updated, they both got the latest technologies, it's just in terms of usability. So what this means for you when you're using Linux Mint, the Cinnamon version of Linux Mint, as you can see, it's got a black bar at the bottom, whereas the Mate edition has a gray bar at the bottom. And it says here, Cinnamon edition, sleek, modern, innovative. Mate edition, stable, robust, traditional. The Mate edition has less special effects than the desktop. It's slightly faster. That is a really annoying ad for a Linux page, let me tell you. Wow, same ad. There we go. So, once again, Cinnamon is a little more flashy, only slightly more flashy. And I used Mate in the past. I've never used Cinnamon. I've always used the Mate version of Linux Mint. And I really liked it. Very traditional. If you've ever used Windows, you can definitely figure out Mate. As you can see, it's got a start menu, it's got a taskbar, but so does Cinnamon. And I am really excited about Cinnamon because, as you can see, it's also got a start menu and a taskbar, and Cinnamon 2.0 came out just recently. And that's a pretty big milestone. That, yeah, Cinnamon 2.0, I mean, that's just, you know, version 2. They've got things like advanced window snapping that Mate does not have. They've got things like just the theming is different than Mate, just looks a little nicer all around. So even though Mate is actually slightly faster, I'm going to try out Cinnamon just for something new, because my computer can definitely handle a graphic here or there. I mean, I used macOS on here for 6 months, which macOS has a lot of special effects. I'm pretty sure I can handle Cinnamon. Now, there's the normal Linux Mint versus Linux Mint Debian. Linux Mint Debian is, as you can see, the latest Mint technology directly on top of Debian. And the point of Linux Mint Debian is to be exactly the same usability-wise as Linux Mint, the normal version, except it is based off of Debian rather than Ubuntu. And if you don't know, Ubuntu a long time ago was based off of Debian, but they're no longer compatible with each other. Ubuntu is just too heavily modified. So yeah, you can install Ubuntu packages on Linux Mint Ubuntu version. You can install Debian packages on the Debian version. Ideally, you don't need to install any extra packages on either version, because there is a Linux Mint software manager, and anything that's actually been customized for Linux Mint, if it works on one of these, it'll work on the other one. Now, I would actually get the Ubuntu version just because I know there's some stuff like Netflix for desktop that work on Ubuntu that don't work easily on non-Ubuntu systems. However, like I said, Linux Mint 17 coming out in 2 months, and I used to reinstall my operating system like every week, every other week. But I kind of got tired of doing that, and I've been enjoying Windows just for the simple fact that I haven't had to maintain it. I've just been sitting here on my butt playing with Windows and not really worrying about it, not reinstalling, not screwing with things. And I'm picking Linux Mint for sort of the same reason. I don't want to have to worry about screwing with things. I don't want to have to worry about reinstalling. I want it to be an easy-to-use system that I can keep for months and not have to worry about reinstalling. Now, Linux Mint, if I had version 16, I would have to reinstall when version 17 came out. It's possible to upgrade without reinstalling, but sometimes it leaves your system not exactly happy. Linux Mint Debian, as you can see, a semi-rolling distribution. What that means, it used to be a normal rolling distribution. A rolling distribution means there's not version 6, version 7, version 8. Instead of that, it's just here's some updates. There's some updates. You got the newest version? Yeah, that's fine. We won't give it a number. It's just called the newest version. Semi-rolling distribution means that it comes in update packs. So an update pack actually just came out recently. As you can see, 2014-03 came out last month, because it was the third month of 2014. So that was an update pack. So yeah, like I said, the Linux Mint regular edition is going to be updated in just a couple of months, and I really don't want to have to reinstall. And I also would like to try out Cinnamon 2.0, which was included in the latest update pack for Linux Mint Debian Edition. So I am going to go ahead and choose Cinnamon edition of, well, first, yeah, Linux Mint Debian, Cinnamon, 64-bit, and I'm going to download that. And I'll actually probably grab the torrent file, just because, you know, why not? And that will go ahead and download as soon as I pick up some peers there. Yep, there we go. But yeah, you can just click on one of the regular download links if you don't have a torrent application installed, and yeah, you just burn that to a CD or a DVD. You can just look up how to burn an ISO to a DVD or something, and I will show you guys how to install this in the next video. So yeah, like I said, the next video will be the installation for Linux Mint, and if you have any questions about Linux, or if you have any important tasks you do on your computer and you'd like to know, hey Jacob, how can I do this that I normally do on Windows on Linux, then I will do my best to find an alternative or a way to do that thing on Linux, be it the same program, like I said, or a different program, like Photoshop, GIMP is an alternative. Anyway, you'll find out all about it in the next few videos. So yeah, stay tuned, leave comments down below if you have any questions. I'm Jacob Kaufman, I'm in the street, and this is Life on Linux Season 2. See ya.